Hello and welcome, I'm Tafara Gadamu. A few weeks back, Dr. Mulatu Teshome was elected and sworn in as Ethiopia's new president. Well, what does he intend to do in the next 6 years? I caught up with him at the National Palace for this interview this past week. Mr. President, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's interesting that you were a junior diplomat in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs way back in 1991 when you joined the ministry as a counselor. That kind of opened a whole new avenue for you. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes. I could say that I prepared myself to be a professional diplomat. Academically, after serving as assistant lecturer for 2 years back in 1983-84 under the then Commission for Higher Education of Ethiopia, I went back for graduate studies, and I changed the course of my future. And
you mean to Peking University then?
In China, there was no school of economics in Peking University or in any Chinese universities. They call it political economy. And the word political economy is to state that economics per se is the science of economics for the capitalist system, whereas what fits to the system then in China was political economy. And I started with political economy as a major, and philosophy was my minor. And I was assistant lecturer for 2 years in Ethiopia with BA, not yet a graduate student. So, you need to upgrade your level of education, at least to hold your master's and, if possible, your PhD, even if you want to fall in the academic world. So, as an academician, I went back to Peking University, and I shifted to international relations, the Department of International Politics. Then I got my master's in international law. Then automatically I was able to be a PhD candidate after qualifying for entrance exams and so on and so forth. So after Peking University, I really wanted to test myself in Western education system.
That's when you decided to join Tufti?
That's right. Actually, I applied to very prestigious universities.
It indeed is.
But what I picked was the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. It's practical. The professionals you find, basically they are career diplomats, already counselors, already, very high-level diplomats. After acquiring masters, you don't find any student, any graduate student with BA applying for the Fletcher School. And it was, as you know, administered by Harvard University. So the choice for me was going to Harvard in any faculty to continue as academician, or to be a practitioner diplomat. Then my choice was for Fletcher. Then after completing my studies at the Fletcher, at the same time I was doing my research for my PhD and preparing my dissertations back in Peking University. So I got my mold, we call it mold, at the Fletcher, and I also acquired my PhD in Peking University. Then luckily the Darg regime was gone.
But then public service, was it a choice as far as you were concerned?
What I did was, I came to Ethiopia, 1991, September, and many people who knew me in the foreign ministry and also at the higher education, they said, you better serve your country. You know? And myself, I also thought, really, I have to be here, be with my people, serve my country. And
so let me backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Do you consider yourself a product of two worlds? I'm talking about the Orient, where you had your training in China, and also in the Western Hemisphere, basically the United States. Do you consider yourself a product of two different cultures in terms of academic?
Truly speaking, culture as such is the depths and widths of education in which you are broadening your world outlook. I have gained a lot from Peking University. I have gained a lot from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. If you ask me, how long have you been in the United States, the time might be very short when compared to that of China.
But certainly it was intense, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And actually, when you are in a very new environment, in challenging environment, you work hard. You work hard to overcome all obstacles, all difficulties. So if someone who has been there with that given environment is working for 5 hours, I have to work for 10 hours. And really, at the end of the day,
it paid off.
It paid off. And then I prepared myself to serve in the diplomatic world. If the regime change was not there, I might have ended up in international organizations. That was for sure. But luckily, really I could say luckily, I came back to my country where I can be able to serve my people.
You went to the Far East as Ethiopia's envoy, as Ethiopia's top diplomat.
Yes.
Was it like going back home?
What happened is, my first trip to China was 1976. I was at what we call the Edgat Behret Zamacha, the Derg campaign. When I went back to China in 1995, I was the ambassador of Ethiopia to Japan from 1992 to 94, mid-94. Then from Japan I was transferred to China. And as you rightly said, it was like really going back home, because so many friends, so many acquaintances, the language was there, the culture was very familiar for me.
But this one is totally different responsibility.
Absolutely.
China was not only rising, but it has so much influence in world politics, the economy, and so on.
Yes.
So much so that a few years back it became the second biggest, largest economy. I mean, when you went back as Ethiopia's ambassador to that country, to China, I'm sure the Chinese were out to make business, to kind of forge relationships, more so with the global south, including Ethiopia. Was it a challenge for you to kind of maintain that balance?
Well, what happened is, really everybody was happy from the Chinese side. My schoolmates, classmates, my advisors, professors, including the government for that matter, because they have trained somebody.
Someone who can speak Mandarin.
Mandarin, and who made it possible to walk through the ambassadorial avenue. And relatively, it was in a short period of time. Okay, I acquired my last degree as PhD in 1991, and 1994 to appear as an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary. That's a source of pride for them also. And
so someone they can easily deal with.
Absolutely. Yes. You know, we started using economic diplomacy then, and some of my compatriots and especially colleagues in the embassy were brainstorming what shall we do with these opportunities, really very fertile opportunities that I speak the Mandarin, the language. I also had some really good information about China. I could call myself a China hand. And the Chinese were not as such outgoing as investors back then. Okay, they were more of like interested in trading, in exports, and whatever we have, of course, to be importers of Ethiopian products. Investment, not much really, except that some public enterprises, some public companies, which are sponsored by the government, are taking some shares in the Ethiopian construction market. After serving about 1.5 years in China, I was promoted as Deputy Minister of Economic MEDAC, we call it, Ministry of Economic Cooperation, Development Cooperation, MEDAC. So the time I spent in China as ambassador was relatively short, very short, but my duty at MEDAC was I was in charge of international economic relations. So my China connection was still there. And I could say that if you ask most of Chinese companies, the very reason they came to Ethiopia or how they come to know about Ethiopia is because of Mulatu.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
Yes. And for that, really, I feel very happy, extremely happy.
But fast forward to today, there are so many Chinese companies operating, making, in several investment sectors in this country. There is that part to the story where there are cheap Chinese goods coming to Ethiopia, and some of the local businesses might definitely be affected. How do you view?
Yeah, it all depends on us. By purchasing high quality products from China or cheap quality products from China, that is not in the interest of Ethiopia. What is in our interest is to produce what we are importing in Ethiopia. For that, the Chinese now, today, they are in a very much better position to invest in Ethiopia, to be partners with Ethiopian business community. It also is up to the concerned authorities in Ethiopia to define what the quality of and the standards of these products should be. I think we have got a standardization authority. They have to be very capable of controlling what is meant by cheap products, what is meant by quality products. We have to have definite rules and regulations. Otherwise, Chinese are very hard-working people. They can produce what our country needs, be it is produced in Ethiopia or it is produced in any province of China. But our preference has to be, it has to be produced in Ethiopia.
And you were, before you became president the last few weeks, you were Ethiopia's ambassador to Turkey. During your term as Ethiopia's ambassador based in Ankara, we saw a surge in terms of Turkish investment in Ethiopia.
Yes, if my diplomatic career ended up without going to Turkey as ambassador of Ethiopia, I might not have had enough chapters to write in my memoirs. I could say that I was really extremely successful in coming up with definite results. My mission was result-oriented. When I went to Ankara in 2006, I was quite astonished and surprised by my government's decision to send me to a country where I do not know anything about. I have to start everything from the scratch. We didn't have any embassy. I have to work hard to make some meaningful stays or my tour of duty. So Turkey really was very cooperative, and I managed to conquer their hearts in convincing them, go to Ethiopia, go and invest in Ethiopia. And the information the Turks had about Ethiopia was, Ethiopia, okay, you can make some charitable activities in Ethiopia, but Ethiopia is not at all a country where you go and invest. So some of the investors, I pushed them just to come and see Ethiopia.
Have a look for yourself.
Yes. Some of them, they came for two days. I can give you, it's not an abstract. This LC Addis, Mr. Seyfettin Kocak, who is now the LC company or LC group owner, he just came for 1 day. And he took a 1 month visa, tourist visa. And my colleagues, the ministers, all concerned authorities, including our late Prime Minister, were extremely helpful for my mission in receiving this individual businessman. He was attracted, he fell in love with Ethiopia. He came back to Turkey, Ankara, and said, no, I want a 1-year business visa, and I have decided to invest in Ethiopia. So, almost all of them, all the investors, including ICA Addis, which is a giant textile, LC Addis, Etur, which is in Adama, again, LC also is in Adama, Saigandima, Sabata, the BMET, which is the cable industry.
All of a sudden you see Turkish invasion in terms of...
for me it is yet very small. And
what is the volume?
I'm quite sure that the number will increase. I still will use my office, I will use the presidency to make very meaningful, encouraging and attracting the investors, be it from Turkey, China, Japan, where I served.
Will you also be able to look into the West to kind of...
Absolutely, yes.
Are you encouraged by the amount of investment that's flowing in from the West?
We have to work hard. I don't know, because I was not tested in the Western world. I cannot say we invited them to come and they didn't come. I don't have that ground. I have to be tested, or I have to test the West. So the Turkish or the Chinese, the Americans, the Japanese, where I have some sentimental connections, be it through education or through my mission as a diplomat, I've got good ground to talk to them, to tell them to come and invest in Ethiopia. So the Turkish people, or the Turkish investors who came to Ethiopia, what I see is that they are successful. And when I see their success, I see that my country is successful. Because if they collapse, if they bankrupt, it is Ethiopia who loses.
That would send a very wrong signal.
Absolutely. Take Else.
Why do you think they could fail?
No, they couldn't. If we...
In other words, are there things that need to be done from within the country to kind of make investment?
We have got attractive policies. These attractive policies have to be translated into reality. It has to be really always supportive of the investors. If you are in the position of intimidating the investor, he will shy away, he will go.
That's one of the points that I wanted to raise. Do you think that the responsible institutions in this country should do a lot more to be able to make that attractive?
Yes. Let me start with another example. M&S, which is a company for home textile, completed 8 hectares of closed area just in 1 year. That is going to serve as a benchmark for the Ethiopian government. How big 8 hectare closed area is, you can imagine. Just completed in 1 year span. Already started producing, already started exporting. And
but it's not the same everywhere.
Company already has decided, after coming to Ethiopia, after getting land for the factory, already has decided to pack and go. He told me, yes, Ambassador, you did a lot of good things for me, but unfortunately I cannot stay. I cannot further push the bureaucracy. Thanks to the colleagues who cooperated with me then. They begged him, they fulfilled whatever he wanted. Now he became really exemplary investor in our country. So what I want to say from this is that if we all cooperate, maybe the responsibility lies Ministry of Industry or Investment Authority or a given embassy or the Prime Ministry. If you are attaching only to a single institution, the rate of success is going to be limited. It needs a concerted effort from all concerned institutions, all Ethiopians for that matter, to retain any investor who comes to Ethiopia to invest. If we annoy any single one of them, it is going to be a very bad signal. Because they will go back to his country or her country, say, I tried Ethiopia, but simply you cannot make a successful business. But now we have got a lot of stories to tell. There are success stories, and these success stories can serve as advertising Ethiopia, changing Ethiopia's image for the good.
I'm sure that you'll be pushing the agenda of investment, that's for sure. But when you look forward, what do you want to focus on personally? What do you want to see happening in the next 6 years?
I want to see our GTP, the Growth and Transformation Program, to be a success in the coming 2 years, because it's only 2 years remaining. If you are asking me in my terms as president for the coming 6 years, the journey we have started, the Renaissance journey, has to be intensified. Economically, we have to be prosperous than we are today. We have to be able to make our people happy, proud, and patriotic. We have to be able to have a good governance in place. The democratization process has to be further strengthened. The government already has all these plans, and we, all of us, the government and the whole people of Ethiopia, have to work hard to attain the objectives we set in what we have to attain in economic development, in democratization, in attaining peace and stability in our country and also in our region. Because without peace and stability, in our region, we are going to be affected. So, in short, the economic development of Ethiopia and the securing sustainable peace, very important for Ethiopia. Stability, political stability is very important for Ethiopia.
Are you concerned about that? Because we live in a very tough neighborhood.
Yes, that is why I'm trying to connect our own stability, our own peace and stability with that of our neighbors. If Ethiopia is stable, Ethiopia can be a factor for its neighbors to be stable. Ethiopia is a big country with a population of over 90 million, with a land area of 1.1 million square kilometers, very rich in natural resources. And, when we take into account what the government has as the development agendas and programs, it is encouraging and it is giving hope, very big hope for the entire people. So the Ethiopian nations, nationalities and people have to be in the same direction to strengthen the economic capacity of their country. If we are strong economically and if we are in a position to secure a prosperous country, every citizen, believe me, is going to be a defender of that interest of the country. If the economic muscle is weak, you cannot defend whatever is required from you to defend the national interest. So economic interest is the pillar.
But also good governance has always been an issue.
I think we are theoretically we are in a very right direction, I could say. But it has to be strengthened.
Accountability must be.
It has to be strengthened. Rule of law has to be there. Accountability definitely has to be there. And whoever is responsible for doing right has to be praised, and someone doing wrong has to be responsible for the wrongdoing. Transparency is very important, and I think we are on the way to create a very transparent society. And transparent society is a very important element in bringing democratic society.
Mr. President, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on this show.
Thank you very much.